Social acceptance is one of the most powerful forces in human society, if you ask me. It's involved in almost every thought we have and decisions we make that has the potential to be exposed to others, whether on purpose or by accident. The power over you to want to be accepted or viewed a certain way comes in subtle ways, like changing the song you're listening to when you pull up to a red light so nobody knows you actually like Lil Uzi Vert, to even larger examples like accepting certain beliefs and values because it's what you were raised to understand and identify with. It's ingrained in us even as children when we learn what's acceptable and unacceptable to do in our chosen group of friends to keep the friendship strong and withstand the test of time and tribulation. It's why being a loner or outcast is considered abnormal and sometimes unhealthy for a child to behave in that manner. Being accepted by the people you find important or close to you is what drives people to continue working on important jobs they don't enjoy, because the benefits of that work makes a person, especially men, feel great about adding something of value or completing a task that merits praise or reward from society. It also leads people to strive to be the best to gain respect and envy, hence beauty products and sports being so damn lucrative, which coincidentally displays the epitome of an ideal mate physically. This deep-seated longing of wanting to connect with some of your species can have a very dark side as well if used to commit immoral or unethical acts in hopes of proving oneself to people who don't have good intentions or an understanding of morality. Destructive and counterproductive ideas can spread rather quickly sometimes and lead to bad decisions that can't be taken back, like committing suicide in a cult or running down innocent people with a truck in the name of Allah. The persons responsible for planting the seeds in a lot of these suspects' heads preyed on the fact of their desperate need to be a part of a social group and feel wanted, which might stem from abandonment or abuse at a young age. Social pressure can also make a person electrocute another person simply because someone in an authoritative position tells them to persistently, for fear of being wrong or looked down upon by that person. This continues even when they can hear the person's pain and empathize. Social acceptance can drive people to accept certain ideologies in order to avoid rejection or being an outcast for questioning or disagreeing with the ideology, and even make them go as far as to defend it when somebody else does. It can make a man live his entire life trying to please women because he prides himself off being accepted by women and not what he can do for himself separate of a woman's approval, because he's been conditioned to think he cannot be whole or accepted as a man unless he has a woman in his life.
I'm not trying to put our women on a pedestal that they don't deserve to be on. No man is a man without a woman. It's a woman that helps the man to be a man. A man that don't have a woman don't know if he's one. What do I mean by that? A woman will test you to see if you are what you say you are. Any woman that you fall in love with, she love you too, but she gonna try you. That's her nature. She gotta know that she can depend on you. She gotta know that you'll stand up for her. She got to know that you'll back up the children that she brings in the world for us.
And if you dare question that logic, you'll be either shamed or shunned until you either give in or give up. Now you can also replace the word woman with family, friends, colleagues, etc., depending on how much of your life you're letting others make decisions for you and have control over. To me, the reason for this is because social rejection, even from complete strangers, can be the physical and mental equivalent of losing someone you love. The same parts of the brain are activated in both situations, and in studies done on human interaction, people who have better social lives are more likely to have better mental and physical health than outcasts or socially awkward people. Now, I would take these studies with a grain of salt, since technological advances in human interaction today is beginning to produce different ways of human interaction in social lives, but it definitely seems like a plausible explanation for how society has been persuaded to accept or commit immoral or just plain stupid acts as a collective in the past and present. The anxiety of being an outcast and not having a good reputation based on what the collective finds invaluable makes a person avoid the actions which lead to that, even if the actions are in line with their personal beliefs and they feel it's the right thing for them to do. Obviously, not everyone is a slave to public perception, and those who aren't are the ones who lead a fulfilling life on their own terms, but also appreciate the life they made for themselves and the importance of the role of those who helped them along the way. They aren't miserable living a life fueled by ego boosters based on a reputation that doesn't actually represent their true character, and surrounding themselves with materialistic bullshit that they barely use use and art they don't even understand to maintain the look of a personal status. Some entertainers are a prime example of people who provide a certain persona which is totally different from who they are as a person, because their true self may not be understood or accepted by their fans or the masses to allow them to continue their work without judgment. I'm not even sure who's right or wrong in that situation. The entertainer for presenting a facade as themselves, or people judging them for being themselves when it doesn't affect their immediate life. Maybe both. I don't know. Anyway, what major example of social acceptance leading people to accept an irrational stance is illegal immigration, and specifically from Islamic countries today that quite obviously have trouble assimilating into other cultures and accepting their actions as wrong and counterproductive to the future of the country in which they're going to reside. There are countless examples and statistics showing that unfettered Muslim immigration harms the countries that accept them, so I won't bore you with those numbers. Instead, I'll just reference them for you to look up yourself. As we've seen in media and from governments not just in America but all over the world, there's a push against those who disagree with mass immigration and multiculturalism in a strong attempt to appease Islamic culture by sacrificing the culture and the people already there. People are afraid to speak out because they may be shunned by their peers in government or be attacked by the people they're trying to shed light on for the world to see with no protection. And governments are afraid to admit they're wrong to their citizens because it means they admit to their incompetence and lack of foresight on what's best for their country in the long run. They admit to millions of wasted tax money in efforts only to terrorize their own people and join forces with the new power in town to avoid losing their cushion position in politics. Some people speculate as to give votes from immigrants because they'll obviously vote in favor of entitlements and benefits in exchange for power for politicians over their citizens and the taxes they provide. There's also speculation that immigration means cheaper labor, but from my understanding, I think a larger percentage of Muslim immigrants end up on government assistance and unemployed, so it doesn't really help in that fact. Unless you're talking about the immigrants being accepted into technological fields where they're driving down prices for jobs like coding and things like that. Despite the facts and obvious detriment mass immigration and illegal immigration are causing to their respective economies, there is still a push to support the idea by citizens and politicians, all based on social acceptance and trying to save face while capitalizing on the silver linings of mass immigration, like more votes for a particular party or more taxes for the government to misallocate or more cultured food or whatever the fuck the case is. Even though things like this are blatantly obvious to some, others choose cognitive dissonance as a way to cope with contradicting information or learning something new that goes against everything a person believes and even built their life around in some cases. Think about the isolation that can cause for a person to learn a life-shattering truth like that. It's hard to accept a truth that turns your world upside down and can make a person feel gullible because their life was based on a lie or falsehood. That's not a feeling humans take too kindly to accepting and moving on. Human beings grasp for explanation of the world around them and sometimes in desperation accept what makes them comfortable enough in their life to help them move forward rather than accepting the truth of the matter that possibly takes away all principles they've lived by in relationships with people they've built solely based on those falsehoods. Nah, that's not easy to accept, and I don't expect everyone in the world to do that with every piece of new information right away, because a social network built can make a person crash if they were reliant on that network for meaning and purpose in their life. They will even go so far as to blame it on others or accept anything that confirms their current beliefs so that they don't have to reevaluate their environment. Generation after generation has been lied to and led to believe that their problems always lay with another enemy far away, and we started false wars and invasions based on biased empathy, fear, and social pressure. Maybe as repentance for all the lies Americans blindly and willingly accepted, we're trying to allow those in the demolished countries to have some refuge here. But that's not the rational solution or a solution at all. It's just a quick fix for people's emotions to make them feel better about giving up their power to a government that destroys more than it innovates. The let my people go jug makes people feel a part of something bigger socially, and that's how they prove they care and have some type of social awareness. The truth of the matter is, America, as fucked up as it may seem to be and will become shortly in my personal opinion if we keep on the same path, is still one of the best collection of ideas and human endeavors we have, and we need to strive to preserve it and progress. Opening up borders to everyone just to feel like you're doing something to help a diminishing country isn't a logical decision. We have to protect what's ours from those who want to destroy it and invite those in who want to experience it and improve upon the living conditions and cultures there. That doesn't mean giving up your culture and ancestry to feel inclusive and avoid being called hateful names for social acceptance. Now, like I said before, so social acceptance can turn a person inside out when met with the truth on things like love, morality, or even law. People will do whatever they can to justify staying in their comfort zone because accepting what's popular is easier than having to analyze and gather information on your own to make an informed decision about every important thing that comes up. That's not how everyone should have to operate either, because you have to have a passion for knowledge to truly pursue truth in that way. So we rely on sources we trust and who claim to have that passion to tell us what's true. In the past, those sources were very limited, so it's easier to use social pressures to bend truth or influence an entire population or a country to think or act a certain way. Now information is readily available, and new sources of information, whether it's journalists, bloggers, or YouTube, or even just fucking comedians, keep popping up every day explaining their take on newfound facts or a new outlook on life they have. It's put more power in the people's hands to choose who they feel is a genuine person who holds the least amount of bias and the best understanding of good principles and their responsibility to those they affect. It makes being truthful and bringing evidence and facts to back up your claims a lucrative career, especially if you live by the principles you preach to those you listen to. With that comes the ability to spread misinformation like a wildfire if you abuse that power. And young, impressionable minds and gullible people start to build their idea of the world around it. I say that to say we have to be careful how social acceptance influences how we think and what we accept, even when it's with people we trust or feel a bond with. High social status does not equal good human being or even happy human beings, so it shouldn't be seen as so important if you have immediate relationships that fulfill your life. It's not to say having a large social following or grand social life is bad, or that wanting to be a part of a society to identify with is unmerited, but to avoid sacrificing your core principles and sense of reality to continue in that comfort zone if it becomes a nuisance. My hopes are that people stop worrying themselves with every little thing going on in the world and feeling like they have to tweet their way to change, or feel like they have to give their money to some random motherfucker telling them to in order to save the world and feel like they are a good person, and start to focus on what they can actually affect in their circle of influence with their actions and way of living. I hope people look deeper into themselves and objective truth so their chance of being misinformed decrease, or avoid being led on by sociopaths. With this change in how we take in and gather information, we see humans splitting off into smaller groups a lot more, because now it's easier to find people whom you can relate to, and not just based on dense popular beliefs. Human interaction in social life is going to change, but how are you going to use that to your advantage? Or will you continue to allow others to use it against you for their own agenda because they understand how important social acceptance is to a human being?